Hello, welcome, and happy and healthy new year. I think this video may be slightly different to what I've been doing recently, and that's because I'm giving myself permission to not to overthink it, not to over worry, not to auto-censor myself. Um, I've got ADHD, so there's always on the back of my head a question: am I concise enough, or am I not too abstract, or will I be understood? Plus, English, as you can hear, is not my first language, so that's always been a little bit of an obsession of mine. Um, is that okay to speak in English when it's not your first language in videos like that? Will people want to listen to that? Yeah, I've been obsessing about it, and it doesn't even help that I've lived in the UK for 12 years. Although it did help, of course it did help. You see, my digressions are kicking in, and then my thoughts are going like, actually, the story was that, and then I can go from one point to another, and I want to avoid that. So I don't want to edit this video. I want too much. I'm gonna just take myself back. So yeah, so I'm giving my permission to say what I want to say and don't overthink it. And there are some world events happening, many of them, that are impacting many of us. And two in particular have had a direct or indirect impact on me. And I'm talking about COVID and Brexit. And that led me to some reflections. And in today's video, I wanted to share some of those reflections and observations, if you like, from personal point of view. And then I want to give you food for thought on how you may be presenting yourself, what kind of permission you may be wanting to give yourself or to your employees at work if they are from a diverse background themselves. So I hope at least one of you will find this video useful. I still may be having a little bit of trouble with my speaking as well, because end of the year in December I've tested positive with COVID. So I've tested positive with COVID, and it's been I'm fine now. I even have my sense of smell back, which is very nice. It was very bizarre not to be able to smell, and that was actually my first that wasn't my first symptom. My first symptom was the fever, followed by loss of sense of smell a couple of days later. And when I've lost the smell, I knew it would be COVID, but obviously I've done the test as well. So I went through it, and my symptoms were quite mild, I think. They lasted 2 weeks. I had fever, I lost my sense of smell. I was really tired. I remember just cooking pasta, something very simple, was tiring. I had to sit down because there was a little bit too much of standing. Even moving from room to room would make me dizzy. And then cough came, so I would cough quite a lot. But I think luckily I didn't have a sore throat, because when I do have a sore throat, it's really bad. So at least I didn't have a sore throat. So so it was 2 weeks of feeling tired and having the symptoms, but the biggest challenge probably for me was feeling anxious and uncertain and waiting. It was like a waiting game, because is it going to develop to something worse, or is it the worst I'm going to experience that for? And then worrying about what's going to happen to children. What if both of us will have to go to the hospital, and me and my husband. So it was very an anxious period. And actually when one of my reflections was, are you really being anxious about your videos and your accent? It's ridiculous. It's nothing to be anxious about. And I know it's like, it sounds petty a little bit maybe and silly, but we have to face those kind of challenges every day, often. So it was one thing that brings me some review how I present myself in the work context, and how I judge myself, and how harsh I can be on myself, when things can be very vulnerable. And my second reflection on that one as well is the amount of things we take for granted. There's a poem by Adam Mickiewicz in Polish that says that actually, I think, in a way, links the two, the COVID and Brexit, in my head and in my personal experience, which says: Litwo, ojczyzno moja, ty jesteś jak zdrowie, ile cię trzeba cenić, ten tylko się dowie, kto cię stracił. Lithuania, you are like health, how much we should appreciate you, one will only know if they lose you. So, I'm not going into the history of why a Polish poet says Lithuania, Lithuania, my homeland. I think Polish history is quite interesting, so you can Google it, but it does resonates with me so well at the beginning of this year, thinking about the places you're coming from, your health, the things that matter, the little things that matter, and how much we take for granted if we don't lose it. So why I'm linking this to Brexit? I don't want to talk about Brexit in the political sense. I don't even attempt to. Obviously, Brexit was a sad event for me, very sad. I've blogged about it actually, but I do understand at the same time why some people would vote for Brexit and why would others vote against it. And but that's not about that. What I want to talk about is my experience of going to the UK when I could take it for granted, when I could just go and look for the jobs and kind of everything was in my hands. There was no bureaucracy to make it more difficult for me, that's for sure. And I did appreciate that in that time, because I'm from that generation that remembers the borders, remembers being checked at the borders. I actually had to have visa to work in Italy. I had to have visa to study in Italy as an Erasmus student. I don't think that many people had a visa at the time, but I did have to have a visa. And the permesso di soggiorno, and and I do know how it is when you can't take it for granted. So I did appreciate it by many ways, but I don't think I ever felt that this would be taken away at any point, or at any point so soon, for me at least. So so I think that's the sense of loss there for sure, in that sense. But at the same time, the 12 years I spent in the UK, I really appreciate them. And as I was reflecting on my career in the UK, which went from my very first job was processing invoices in the UK, and there's nothing wrong with processing invoices, but now I know I've got ADHD, so a job that requires repetitive tasks and attention to detail is not ideal for us. It was really not, but I was very lucky to work for a great company and with a fantastic team. So it was still a very valuable experience. And then then I moved jobs after a year. I worked for the in a customer service role, so still there was similarity of that. And then that's a good question. Was I lucky enough, or did I help my luck, or it was like everything came together at the right place at the right time, and I was given an opportunity to start working in HR. And ever since, I grew professionally in HR, and I am forever grateful for that. Like, HR is my place; it's where I belong, and having that experience in the UK was super valuable. So I will be forever grateful, and I feel like I've used that time reasonably well, or even very well. But there's a question: Let me drink my tea because my post-COVID recovery requires that. I'm becoming very self-conscious about my COVID. Anyway, so reflecting back, it doesn't happen that you come to work, you work, and then you are just being given an opportunity. One, the opportunity must be there, but also people have to believe in you and trust you. And I know that my manager at that time had to put a lot of trust and trust her own intuition to give me that chance. That was a small company, and that was a standalone HR role. We had HR, but that was from the corporate from the US, and in the UK the HR function was split between different people. So if there was recruitment, the relevant manager would deal with it, and so on. But we didn't have one person doing specifically HR, and I asked, could I do it? And it wasn't a simple act of me asking, but obviously I have had to prove myself beforehand. Today I know that what I've done is called job crafting. And I have a video on job crafting with fantastic Rob Baker from Tailored Thinking, where we actually do an exercise based on that, actually based on my previous experience as a customer service role. So link below, have a look. But what I wanted to add to that topic is that the more I think about it, the more I research that, and I have done a little bit of research around that, and I've done as well focus groups into different organizations, and I trial this concept that I'm going to talk about it in a second, that it may actually work and may be insightful and valuable to you or to your team. So what I'm thinking about is a difference between two different mindsets that I call a validation mindset and a valid mindset. I've mentioned at the beginning that I have always this in the back of my mind: is my English good enough? Is my accent good enough? Is it okay? Is what I'm saying valuable to people? Is there any value? Like, all the imposter syndrome things. And I do compare myself to others, and you can get in that loop of thinking that all it's gonna do is slowing you down, I guess, or keeping you in one place. And especially when I started working in the UK, I had that mindset of, I have to prove that it's okay for me to be here. I have to prove that I deserve to be here, that I'm not taking anybody's jobs, that there is something more, that I can be here. And that was a little bit of my, and I think my thinking back then was the validation mindset, especially at the beginning. So I would say, I have to speak better English to level up with my colleagues, or I have to process the invoices as my colleagues do. So I would compare, and I would be focusing on what others are doing well and how I can level it up, how I can, by my actions, how I can work in a way that will validate, will approve my existence in the workplace. And I think that's a limiting mindset for an individual and for the organization. I think with this kind of mindset, we can be in a constant state of threat and in a constant state of guarding yourself, versus making your career or your work valid to yourself and to those around you. And I have pre-prepared a chart. I'm going to walk you through it.